Hello and welcome back to Red Pan of Destiny for a continuing series covering Two of These People Are Lying by the technical difficulties found on the Matt and Tom YouTube channel. Today we are doing Season 2, Episode 3, The Sweaty Column. This is a good one, though it does have the first negative from an episode that we've got. So there is that. But let's get into it. So the first positive we have is Gary's intro, as usual. Something about thongs and British desert regiments or something. But moving into the first round, which is where our first negative comes up. And the negative is the fact that the first round is the Hagia Sophia. Is that not a world-famous monument? I was pretty sure most people knew where the Hagia Sophia was, but whatever. I mean, if you don't know where it is, it's a very famous museum in Istanbul. I believe it has in its past been a church and a mosque, but now is simply a museum. But somehow, Tom had never heard of the Hagia Sophia, so this somehow worked. But we'll be getting into that in a second, because what he actually thought it was a band that Matt suggested. It was a folk band. Obviously, he was wrong. Gary, of course, was the one who had it correct, and it was the museum in Istanbul. And then Chris said it was a location of a famous piece of Viking graffiti. But we need to go back to the folk, because apparently he said they were going to play. They were playing like next Thursday, nearby somewhere. So that leads to the joke: a festival of folk. It's like, well, they have folk there, so maybe they have a festival, and then it leads to imagine there being a long line of folk. There's a folk. Here's some folk. It's not very funny, but it gets positive. And then we get the next positive, which was what Chris decided to do with the Hagia Sophia, because, like the average person, he knows what the Hagia Sophia is. And he decided to use a very small and random detail about the Hagia Sophia, which is the fact that it is a location with some Viking graffiti in it. I thought that was very clever. I'm not sure if it's really within the spirit of the game, but whatever, it was funny. But that brings us on to round 2, which was Batlow. Batlow. Sorry if that was pronounced weird. So Gary said it was the shortest river in North Yorkshire, at a mere 3 feet long. Which actually gets a positive, and you'll understand in a minute why. But before then, there's another positive one to give, which is Tom references the fact that in the first season, he'd, on some occasions, very rudely just gone, nope, which is exactly what he did here. The reason being, he had a video, which he'd finished filming, that wasn't out yet, about the shortest rivers in the world. So he knew exactly what he was talking about, and he's like, yeah, 3 feet, no. There's no river that short. So I'm giving a positive just for the randomness of that and how bad Gary screwed up on this one. So we got a positive for that, a positive for crossing things out, a random positive for a joke where Gary said, "Oh, well, your research must have come up short then." Of course, he's just bullshitting, trying to get his choice more believable. But the other two said that it was a village in Shropshire, which was very believable, or a town in New South Wales, Australia. Both of which were completely believable. I believe the village in the town in Australia was the correct one. But then in the end, they're kind of recapping the whole river thing. And Tom said, well, if I'd known that, I wouldn't have had to go to Finland to film that video. And they're like, oh, you've been to Finland, have you? Did you go through an airport? Of course, referencing an episode in season 1 where he didn't know the word for airport or airfield in Finnish, even though he's been to Finland several times. So there was a lot of giving him flack for not knowing anything about Finland, because there was something else in that episode that he didn't know about Finland, when he totally ruled out the idea of there being a food item that's just a meatball on a stick, which there is. And then, of course, the standard no outro plus. All in all, a pretty funny episode. And it's definitely telling me that season 2 is better than season 1, because there have been 2 really standout episodes, and there were no real standouts in season 1. But I hope you join us next time. I believe we have one more season 2 episode. One of the seasons has 4 episodes. I believe it is this one. So join us in a few days for that one.